truly, the 21st century has the potential to be India's century. And digitization has helped every Indian expand their individual potential. एक ज़माना था कि मनी ऑर्डर पहुंचने में एक अरसा लग जाता था, और अब पैसा यहाँ से वहाँ भेजना कुछ ही पलों में संभव है। और ये सब हुआ है डिजिटल क्रांति से। इससे हमें प्रोडक्टिविटी मिली और इसने हमारी क्षमताओं से हमको रूबरू करवाया है। दूरियां सिमट आई हैं आजकल। One hears of countless success stories of how Indians across the social economic strata have embraced the power of digital and used their ingenuity and passion to pivot their small business and ideas into successful ventures. And it is these people and businesses that will be the prime movers in unleashing India's full potential in the 21st century. Who better to speak about it than former chairman and CEO of PepsiCo and current member of the board of directors at Amazon, Ms. Indira Nooyi, who is in conversation with none other than the CEO Niti Aayog, Shri Amitabh Kant.
Indra, it's such a pleasure and a privilege to be interacting with you. You've been one of the most prolific business leaders that India has ever produced, and you're an icon and inspiration for so many people. You've also been a keen India watcher and participated in multiple ways here. It'll really be exciting to hear what you think is the great opportunity that India has today to establish itself as a key component of the global supply chain.
Thank you, Amitabh, and thank you to Amazon for inviting me to speak with Amitabh, an old friend, on topics related to self-sufficiency of India, global supply chains, and India's place in it. And, we can both chat. Amitabh, you're an expert in this area. I come at it from a global perspective. It'd be great to exchange ideas. Let me start off by saying COVID has been a big disruptive force around the world. I don't think I've ever seen 3/4 of the world shut down simultaneously. And even in the United States, where I am, I've never seen so much of the country completely shut down. So it's been a completely disruptive force in the world. But I think anytime there's a major disruptive action like a pandemic, it gives countries, companies an opportunity to stop and think about how to reset for the future. And I think one of the big things that India has done, first, navigated through the pandemic quite well. It's been a resilient country. In spite of the density of the populations in the urban areas, India's managed to control COVID better than many other countries in the world. But now coming out of COVID, India has to really rethink what its place is going to be in the global supply chain in terms of what kind of manufacturing is it going to control? What kind of critical supplies is it going to, manufacture for itself in the country? Because there's one thing that COVID showed us around the world is that if you don't control your destiny on critical items, you could in fact be left holding, at the negative end of the whole supply chain. PPE not available, vaccines not available, critical drugs not available. And so countries are now beginning to say, we have to rethink what we control in terms of critical components in the global supply chain. Where India becomes, a very important country for itself and the global supply chain is that India is a country with, almost 1.2, 1.3 billion people. You have the scale to manufacture everything in India for the country to start with. So it's not as if you have to manufacture just for export. You need to manufacture for India. And because you have the scale, you can also be low cost. And based on the low cost production for India, you can now export. So I think this is an exciting time for India. If India were to approach this whole self-sufficiency in a very systematic, carefully thought through way, India could well be a major center for the supply of critical life-saving drugs, vaccines, PPE, ventilators, you name it, critical components for today and for tomorrow. And it can be a innovative, low-cost, high-scale manufacturing country. So I'm sincerely hoping, Amitabh, with people like you getting involved with the Indian government, that you think through what the supply chains should be coming out of India, how you build not just assembly, but manufacturing of the ecosystem. Set up the entire ecosystem to support the assembly so that you can really build a self-sufficient, resilient India going forward.
No, wonderful, wonderful. Indra, one of the key aspects of what we've done during the COVID is that we were major importers of ventilator, PPE. We've seen a huge amount of technological innovation. Now we are major exporters of ventilator and PPE. We've done a huge amount of innovation on the testing kits actually in India.
Right.
And we've consciously made efforts to shift policy focus from just make in India for India to make in India for the world in many ways. And we've taken a very, the Prime Minister himself has driven some very, very radical policy changes in terms of reforms. So reforms across MSME sector, reforms across logistics, reforms across mining, reforms in terms of ease of doing business. And the overall strategy has been that we should bring in ease of execution, predictability, and really ensure that we work hand in hand with the private sector as facilitators and catalysts. And that is what we've tried to do. But, one thing I really wanted to point out was that, quite often we find that India used to get into sunset areas of growth,
Right.
and it was very difficult to bring in size and scale of manufacturing in those areas because positions had already been taken by other countries.
Right.
And other manufacturers across the world. So what the government has done is to bring in a production-linked incentive scheme across several sectors of the economy. Identified 10 sectors where the government says that it will bring in economies of scale and drive large-scale manufacturing. And to my mind, size and scale and integrating with the global value chain is very critical. And this, given the geopolitics, it's very important that it's an opportunity for manufacturers to relocate to India if you're able to create the right conditions. So we looked at a production-linked incentive scheme in areas where global trade has grown very significantly. And you'll be quite amazed to learn that actually India's exports, 75% of India's exports are in areas where the global trade actually has shrunk down to just about 30%. So we looked at completely new areas, electronics, technology products, advanced chemistry cell, battery manufacturing, automobiles. These are completely new, solar PV manufacturing, ACs and LED and specialty steels where you can bring in, where India has the domestic manufacturing capability to bring in size and scale of manufacturing and also get an opportunity to ensure that global manufacturers can relocate here. So I
think the key thing though is making sure that you don't bring in just assembly, but you bring in the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so that requires a lot of careful thinking, because when you bring in the ecosystem, you can actually provide opportunities, not just for large companies, but also for small and medium-sized enterprises to supply components. But that requires thinking very carefully about the future products you want to manufacture as opposed to old products that could sunset. So it's very important that you think about what role do you want to play in the future and what kind of ecosystems are you going to build for India and for export.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So we worked with some of the biggest manufacturers in these areas to analyze challenges faced in India as compared to other manufacturing hubs. And we realized that the various components of cost disabilities were the disadvantage due to lack of end-to-end supply chain and supplier ecosystem, the high cost of logistics, and therefore we decided that we will support this ability to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for the next 5 years to the extent of the disadvantage. And in the meantime, work to ensure that we become a very, very cost competitive nation
Right.
as far as logistics is concerned. And that has been the big strategy during this period. And our thinking was that you need to become very, very globally competitive to ensure that global manufacturers relocate here, but also carry out major reforms. So the government has carried out very huge reforms in labor laws. It's codified 29 central labor laws into just 4 codes. It's brought in huge reforms across a range of areas of ease of doing business. So that India becomes a very, very competitive nation. The other thing that we've really pushed is digitization across government, across various areas, so that India becomes technologically, we leapfrog during this period.
And I think that's all in the right direction. I'll just lay out what I think are the 5 things that India has to do, which you're doing most of, but I'll just reiterate it. I think having enough qualified people, which means a tremendous commitment to education, reskilling, and sort of micro courses to upgrade the skills of people. If anybody can do it, India can, because you've got a huge IT sector that can do all of this for you. But I think a real commitment to that is important, because the country cannot judge itself on its best universities. It's got to judge itself on the entire education system, because you've got so many people to educate. So quality of people is very important. The second is a real commitment to product quality. I think back in the 70s and 80s when made in Japan wasn't that aspirational. Then Japan committed to sort of Six Sigma quality, and all of a sudden, the quality of products that came out from Japan were just outstanding. I think India is on that verge right now of committing to extremely high quality output, so that anything that comes out of India is viewed as, mark of high quality. And the third is what you said, the whole robustness of the supply chain. And that requires road, rail, power, water, enough land to build the ecosystem. I think the government is thinking about this in an integrated way. I hope infrastructure build out is a big part of the thinking, because that's critical.
Yeah.
The fourth is what you said, ease of doing business. I think India has moved up substantially in the rankings of ease of doing business, but India still gets a bad rap now and then that it's bureaucratic. You can't change everything overnight, but I think as you digitize government, as you digitize all of the processes, the sooner we can move to, ease of doing business would be better. And finally, it's integrity in everything we do, making sure, as the government has been doing, remove corruption, making sure intellectual property is protected, and most importantly, there's consistency of policy.
Indra, I think you've said all the critical things that India has been working towards.
Yes.
And some of these things the Prime Minister has driven personally. He used this opportunity. We had the 1991 reforms, but after that, major structural reforms have not been carried out. And I think India is one of the few countries which has used COVID to push major structural reforms during this period. But the other thing the India really did was to push, the India Stack, the Aadhaar identification system,
Right.
Which has been the largest effort of its kind in the world. And this, today, 1.3 billion Indians have their biometric. Many years back when I was working in Kerala in the fisheries sector, it used to take us 8 to 9. I was working with traditional fishermen. It used to take us, we were able to give them new technology, outboard motors, fishing crafts, new fishing nets. But opening their bank accounts was a nightmare. Know your customer used to take 8 to 9 months. Today in India, you can open a bank account in less than a minute using your biometric. So that has been a really transformational journey for India. And the other big thing is that now, earlier we used to for people below poverty line and for government schemes, we used to transfer money to state and state to districts and then taluk. Today, we do everything on direct benefit transfer through the JAM Trinity, and that has enabled a completely new mechanism for the delivery of public goods. And this has led to government schemes having virtually no leakages, because everything goes straight into the bank account of the individual. All the duplicates and fake accounts all have been deleted. And thirdly, the unified payment interface infrastructure is just 4 years old, and yet it has executed more than the double of the number of transactions as compared to that of American Express globally. So the unified payment interface platform, all of us are actually used the COVID period to do all our e-commerce transactions digitally on our mobile. So there are 650 million smartphones in India, and all of us are digitally transacting from our mobile, and the transaction values have jumped up enormously. And what has happened as a consequence, and one more thing I wanted to point out, was the goods and services tax, which has actually replaced over 17 different taxes and has become one central tax. And this is also digital, totally digital. And the new health insurance scheme, PMJY, which is totally cashless, paperless, is the biggest health insurance scheme in the world for 500 million Indians, but totally digital. You can be living in Bihar, moving to Tamil Nadu, you'll carry it digitally. So what has happened as a consequence of all this is that India has become hugely digital rich in terms of data. And now we are moving towards becoming data intelligent simply because the huge amount of digitization that has taken place.
No, I think India has so much to be proud of. I look at the Aadhaar card implementation. I think it's the largest implementation of its kind done in the shortest possible time. So I think the power of the talent in India has really come to the fore. So India has a lot to be proud of. This next phase is moving away from software to real manufacturing, buildings on the ground, trucks on the road. This is exploiting and utilizing physical infrastructure in India to the max. And so India has to think about how to expand that pipeline, because you're really going to push more through the pipeline and do it not just for building out manufacturing, but for making movement across the country easy for all its people. I think India in 5 or 10 years is going to be a major force. Everybody recognizes that. The question is, how do you do it deliberately with the eye to the future, as opposed to dwelling on the past? Because India can't remove itself from a global supply chain. India will always be a major player in the global stage.
So, Indra, I thought that the key challenge there was how does India use technology to leapfrog? And secondly, how does it benefit from experiences around the world? When America was urbanizing, it actually built cities for cars and not for people. It created sprawling cities, but India has this opportunity to make cities, and we are going to see a huge amount of urbanization. In the next 5 decades, you'll see about 500 million Indians getting into cities. So the challenge is, how do you make more sustainable, more compact, more dense cities on the back of public transportation? And how do we recycle our water? How do we recycle our waste? And how do we, in many of these areas, how do we learn the lessons from the best examples of the world, including from your part of the world and from the eastern part of the world, to really technologically leapfrog? And that is really, to my mind, will be a very big challenge, because urbanization and manufacturing, and I think both converging together, urbanization and manufacturing, will play a very critical role. So how do we build world-class infrastructure? And I think we've reached a stage of our growth where whatever we do, we must do it to really global standards and do them to real technical excellence. And that is what our objective should be.
I think, Amita, one thing that India does well and will have to do even more going forward is taking the best developed market ideas, the best technologies, and then tailoring it for the Indian environment. Because some of those solutions may be high cost, is how do you then tailor it for the Indian environment? And India has done that consistently over time. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, as you build bigger base of manufacturing, as you build more for self-reliance in India, you're going to need more of those skills to translate global ideas to the Indian context. And so organizations like yours are going to become very important because you're going to have to scout the whole world for ideas to show India's open for business.
Yeah.
And then it's like a virtuous circle, because if people come to India and create a lower cost way of doing something, they can take it back globally. So I think we have to put a little board up which says India is open for business, India is open for investment,
Yeah.
and use India as sort of a innovation engine, if you want to call it, for to send ideas back to the rest of the world. That's what makes it such an attractive story for me.
Yeah. You know, the other thing, Indra, I think one other thing that I wanted to say was that actually this government has demonstrated its political and administrative will to say that, private sector is really going to drive India's economy. And the Prime Minister actually, this particular budget, they have very openly said that government is going to get out of businesses, it's going to privatize public sector, it's going to bring in private sector into banking, into insurance. So this message of private sector driving growth has been sent out very clearly. And we from Niti Aayog have recommended a vast number of public sector organizations for privatization. That's one issue. And the other is that we've seen a huge buoyancy of young entrepreneurship. We've been able to build up a very, very vibrant and dynamic startup ecosystem. And they've been disrupting in a vast range of areas on payments, on insurance, on e-commerce. Some remarkable work has been done by the startups. So we've seen, about the latest study reveals that we've had over 100 unicorns and with market capitalization of 240 billions. So what is happening is that these startups are all innovating for challenges of India. Many of them are innovating on transportation, on water supply, on agriculture. Some have innovated on, nutrition, many of these new areas which will make a huge impact to the population of India. And my view is that as they find solutions to the challenges of India, they'll actually be finding solutions for the next 4 to 5 billion people of the world who will be moving from poverty to middle class in the next decade and a half.
Yeah, I mean, I read about all of the innovations from the entrepreneurs. It's spectacular. My only one request, both for the large companies that are scaling up and for the entrepreneurs coming in and the privatization, all three of them, just have to make sure there's the appropriate governance of companies, governance of their operations, so that there's no malfeasance in any operation, which happens inevitably. And then for small companies, make sure their claims are accurate, their quality standards are high, and whatever they say they make, is on the label, not a mismatch between what's on the label and what's in the product. So I think with having a vibrant ecosystem, Amitabh, having the appropriate regulatory and oversight bodies becomes equally important, because I think at the end of the day, India should be viewed as a reliable, high quality, low cost, outstanding supplier for itself and for the world. That's how you lift the image of India, not one of these things where India produces products which you can't trust the quality of. I'm not saying it's there today, but we should make sure we never get to that place at all.
No, I'm really delighted that you are stressing again and again this aspect of quality and reliability. Yeah. And this, to my mind, is critical if Indian manufacturers have to make a dent in the global markets. And while you talked about the domestic market, the strength of the domestic market, it's very important that Indian manufacturers actually penetrate global markets. I'm a great believer that if you look at post-World War II, countries which have really grown on a sustained basis for a long period of time are those which have managed to penetrate global markets. And that can only be done on the back of high quality and on the basis of reliability. And therefore, this your message which you are sending out is very loud and clear. And I think we'll keep repeating it to all manufacturers, both small and medium enterprises, as well as our startups, that they must lay focus on just these two aspects.
Yeah, and I think the future for India is very bright, especially if you marry the message on cost and quality with education. To me, the big issue is as you start shifting towards more manufacturing, more high-tech stuff, more software driving, products and services, we're going to need a lot of people in India to service the industries of the future. And agriculture will always be an important sector, but I think we're going to need to skill and reskill a lot of the people for the future needs.
Yeah.
And it cannot be go back to school for a 4-year degree course or a 3-year degree course. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
It's how do you take people with degrees that may not be solidly in science and technology and reskill them for, data analytics, for whatever they can do to help move the economy forward. So the whole education system has to be rethought a bit because, what India has talked about today for is micro courses, quick retraining of people by the big IT houses, but now it's got to pervade the entire country. So you don't have one part of the country left behind and one part of the country, participating in this new economy. I think it's going to be a delicate dance to bring both parts of the country together so that the success of the country is divided across its entire population, because that's the hope of the country. Lift everybody up, lift everybody's economic standards up, including women, I should add, Amitabh.
Yeah. Yeah. So you made some very, very important points. And I just wanted to say that, on the education side and skilling side, we've come out with this new education policy, which actually envisages skilling from school onwards. It lays a huge stress on schooling, and it also lays a huge stress on reworking the curriculum on all our engineering courses for producing artificial engineers of tomorrow and for data scientists of tomorrow. And actually many of our engineering colleges and IIT have actually restructured their courses for that. But, I find completely new areas of growth, for instance, the Indian e-commerce ecosystem.
Right.
That is really expected to grow in a very big way. In the next 4 to 5 years, it'll be almost a 250 billion market. And there'll be such a proliferation of small and medium businesses in the e-commerce space. And that pandemic has resulted in a hugely great uptick with respect to adoption of e-commerce. So these are completely new areas where small and medium business enterprises need to be skilled and trained. And this is a huge challenge for the new skill ministry that is working to do this. So we put up this skill qualification programs. But hugely, what you said is right, that the SMBs will have to enhance their capacities and develop better. They'll have to learn the art of better inventory management systems, online strategies to plug into both domestic and international platforms. And, just recently we had this virtual India Toy Fair. It's been a remarkable success. And this is a great example of an entire sector transitioning from offline mode to online mode in a very, very short period, thanks to the COVID.
Yeah, I think another great example, but to your point, e-commerce is nothing but a giant platform where everybody can plug and play. That's really all that is. And they have their own logistical backend. But now every small and medium-sized business has to learn something about technology to be able to plug into a platform and then extract the data and use it to innovate and create more new products. So we're going to have to help them develop a talent base that brings technologically savvy people into those businesses. And so my only request is when you think of the education system, don't think about the top quartile. Think about the bottom quartile too, because I think we have to bring the third and fourth quartile quality up to the top quartile, because the Indian education system is brilliant. I'm a product of the Indian education system. A lot of the people here running big companies came out of the IITs or the IIMs. But I think we've got to think beyond the IITs and the IIMs and the top schools to all the schools in the country, right from kindergarten through college, because it's not just the schools, it's also the teachers. If you don't have enough teachers, how do you get digital education into them? I think there's a big opportunity for revamping education in profound ways. Again, because we have 1.3 billion people in the country, I think all of them deserve the opportunity to have access to outstanding education and then participate in any way. Today, you can be a craftsman in a village and participate in an e-commerce platform like Amazon. That's the beauty of Amazon, for example, that as long as you can plug into the Amazon platform, you can actually sell product. And so it opens up tremendous opportunities, but we need to make sure that they have the basic education to be able to understand the opportunities and participate in it. So I'm optimistic, and hearing you talk, Amitabh, gives me even more optimism because you know exactly what the issues are, what needs to be addressed, and you guys are punching down the list. So I feel very, very optimistic listening to you.
So Indra, we're laying a lot of focus on, because we are such a large country, we are bigger than 24 countries of Europe put together.
Yeah.
So the real focus is on improving learning outcomes, improving, health outcomes. But simultaneously, it's very important that our SMBs are able to tap into the right opportunities globally as well as locally, make them more agile and enhance their capacities. So we try to provide them all a very, very big helping hand. We've recently done a lot of work in the medium and small enterprises to do all this. And hopefully, I think what we are going to see post-COVID is a very, very dynamic and a very vibrant India, exactly in the manner it has faced COVID. We've had, very, very low mortality compared to other parts of the world. We have had low infection so far as compared to other parts of the world, given as far as population is concerned, when you compare it population-wise. And I think we've done extremely well on vaccination, and the speed of vaccination is only accelerating in India. And you're going to see many more vaccines coming out of India, all through indigenous effort. So I think it's, I can assure you that post-COVID, India will be extremely dynamic, very, very, very growth-oriented. We've seen a massive V-shaped recovery in our economy post the lockout. And we will, this Atmanirbhar program is all about integrating India to the global supply chain. And actually, my view is that we are in the most exciting time in history. And globalization has actually made the world extremely small than ever. And technology has become a great leveler. And it's been such a pleasure learning and interacting with you, because you've laid stress on all the critical things which India needs to address. And I think we just need to follow some of your guidance so that we push India to a rapid rate of growth, because the challenge for India is to have sustained growth over the next decade and a half. Because only that can lift a vast segment of India's population above poverty line. And that's what the Prime Minister has done with a whole series of economic reforms in India.
I think you're 100% correct, Amitabh. I think the future for India is very, very exciting. Again, I think the SMBs who are going to participate in now more global supply chain need to be trained massively to talk about what does it take to produce a product for the global market. So it's not just turning something out in a short cycle time for the Indian market. It's meeting global cost standards, global quality standards. So there's going to be a lot of training, education given to them as to what the world is expecting. That's going to be critically important. And the second is keep focusing on ease of doing business in India. I think India is getting better. I think you can't take your eye off that ball, because the whole world is now looking to see how they can go to a country where there's not just enough talent and capabilities, but also less red tape, especially at a time when the world is becoming smaller, but countries are also retreating into their national borders. So it's very important that India shows it's open for business, it's welcoming of FDI, it wants to participate in the global supply chain, and it's going to do everything possible to make sure that there's a regulatory burden is limited, and the country itself is going to be consistent in its policies. And I think if it does that, the future for India is absolutely dazzlingly brilliant.
So Indra, I just wanted to tell you that actually we jumped up 79 positions in the World Bank Ease of
Yep.
Doing Business in the last 4 years.
I saw that.
But the challenge is to reach the top 50 by next year and top 25 in the next 3 years. But rightly, as you said, a lot of action is in the States. We are a very large country, and we need to make the States very easy and simple as we go along. But let me tell you that it's been a real pleasure interacting with you. I'm truly delighted. It's you've said a lot of things which are extremely useful to us and useful to our businesses, and I'm sure many of them will greatly learn from your insights. And thank you very much for this interaction. And I'd like to thank you personally for this, and thank Amazon for arranging this. All our viewers and all the young enterprises and small and medium enterprises, all of them can greatly benefit from your worldview.
Thank you, Amitabh. It was wonderful to see you again. You're a wealth of knowledge, and it's really wonderful to understand where India is going through your eyes. So thank you very much.
Thanks. And we look forward to seeing you in India.
I look forward to being there.